So in this problem, we have a physics book sliding off a horizontal desk with a speed of 1.05 meters per second. It hits the floor after a time of 0.320 seconds. What is the height of the table? So the first thing you do is just draw a picture and then write down everything you know. And separate them into x and y parts. So what is the initial velocity? Well, you can't just say what is the initial velocity because there's actually two parts, right? There's an x component and a y component. Because there's the horizontal, horizontally it has a velocity, and vertically it can have a velocity. But initially, since it's on a horizontal desk and the book's not moving up or down, the vertical is actually going to be 0, and it's going to be completely in the x direction. So it's going to be 1.05. Then it says it hits the floor with a time of 0.320 seconds. The acceleration in the y direction is just going to be gravity. It's going to be negative 9.8. They don't give the acceleration in the x direction. And then we want to know the distance actually of the y, meaning the vertical distance of that table. And then we don't know the horizontal distance. So what formula can we have to know what is the height of the table? Well, we don't have enough information to solve for distance yet because we don't know the final velocity. What we can do is solve for final velocity with the information we have. And remember, when you solve for this, you can only use one of the components. So all of the components have to remain consistent. So if you start with the x component, you can only use the information from the x component, x parts. So this formula will help us solve for final velocity in the y direction. So in this one, we only use the y components. So here we use the y component of the initial velocity, so it's going to be 0. We use acceleration in the y component, which is going to be negative 9.8. And then time is actually, time is the only one you can, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it's the x or y. Time remains the same for both. So we can still use 0.320. We get that the final velocity is negative 3.136 meters per second. Never forget units. But we're actually not done because the actual question asked for the height of the table. So now, since we have final velocity, initial velocity, and acceleration, we can solve for the vertical distance. So we can use this formula. Remember that everything has to remain in the y part, so we can only use the y information. So the initial velocity in the y direction is 0, so 0 here, plus 2, acceleration is negative 9.8 because it's in the y direction. Distance, this distance is the vertical distance, not the horizontal. And this final velocity is just the one we just solved for. So after you solve this, you'll do all this arithmetic, and then you'll get negative 0.502. But remember, this is where you have to use common sense. Distance can't be negative, so what you'll do is just make this a positive distance, and you'll keep it at 3 sig figs, because that's what all the information was given in. It was given in 3 sig figs. So you'll leave it in 3 sig figs. You'll put meters because this isn't velocity, this is distance, and this will be your vertical distance. So that will be your final answer. I hope that helped, and thanks for watching.